All right, what's going on, y'all? Today we're going to talk about the best way to inject TRT and PDs to get the most out of it, the most positive results and gains with the fewest size, and frankly, the healthiest way possible. So today we're going to talk about frequency. I'm going to talk about different sites to use, and I'm also even going to show you my favorite needle size to use and what I suggest for that. So this is something that I spent years trying to dial in during my time as a pro bodybuilder, and then obviously since just being on TRT, how to get the most out of it while also having, pristine health. And so many people, frankly, the majority of people are doing things inefficiently or frankly just outright wrong. And what I share with you today, you're going to be able to get more out of using less and have better results. The way I went about doing things as a pro bodybuilder, a lot of people think I, used a lot more PDs than what I used, and it was because I was able to get more out of less. And that's what I'm going to share with you today on, how to do this in the best way possible to get the most out of what you're using, whether that's TRT or whether you're actually on a cycle for bodybuilding or strength purposes. So let's get into it. So first off, let's talk about frequency. So this is where the vast majority of people are doing things wrong. I don't know how in today's day and age, with everything we know, people are still being prescribed low frequency injections like, once every 2 weeks, once a week, even twice a week injections is still so popular. And it's very much very archaic. It's definitely not the right way to go about doing things. Essentially with whatever you're running, whether that's TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, or whether that's, steroid cycle, you want to keep your hormones as stable as possible. You want to essentially limit any peaks and troughs within hormone levels in your body. The more you do this, one, you're going to mitigate negative side effects. This is where you can go ahead and keep estrogen at bay, even mitigate the need of using an AI, an anti-estrogen. You're going to have much healthier blood work. Your hematocrit levels are going to stay much better. I see so many guys that, while they're on testosterone replacement therapy, their hematocrit levels are rising. And a big part of this is they're doing infrequent injections. The other side of this is the more frequent injections, you can actually get more positive benefits out of it while using less. So this is where you can be on a lower dose of testosterone replacement therapy, or if you're using PEDs, doing that actual steroid cycle, you can actually get more out of less if you do more frequent injections and keep your hormones very, very, very stable. This even is applicable if you're running, a long ester like an enthate or cypionate. Even though those are long esters and it takes, days for it to clear, the half-life is multiple days long. The more you still do micro injections and do more frequent injections, the more stable you're going to keep that compound. You're going to be able to get more out of less. And I'm telling you guys, when I was a pro bodybuilder, the absolute bare minimum, the entire time I competed, whether that was off season or prep, the absolute bare minimum I injected was every other day injections. And the majority of the time I preferred doing everyday injections. And that's what I do with my testosterone replacement therapy. I do everyday injections. If you do everyday injections, you do a smaller amount, you're microdosing it, you're gonna have literally perfectly stable hormone levels. You're not gonna have any peaks and troughs, and this is going to completely mitigate the need of using an anti-estrogen. Assuming that you're not running too high of a dose, you're going to be able to mitigate needing an anti-estrogen. You're going to keep your estrogen in a very, very good spot. You're going to keep your hematocrit in a good spot. This is going to mitigate a lot of the kind of negative effects that come along with TRT. And even if you're running steroids, this is going to be allow you to run essentially less and get more gains out of it. And it's going to keep you healthier in the process. So my biggest recommendation here is get to where you can do more frequent injections rather than less. If you're doing only, twice a week injections, or even if you're doing, a popular strategy out there is doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that makes no sense to me because you're essentially having, stability somewhat throughout the week, and then the weekend you're dropping off and having a trough in your hormone levels. You want to be keeping your hormone levels absolutely stable. So the very bare minimum I suggest is doing every other day injections. Not Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It would literally be every other day. But what I recommend for literally everybody out there is do everyday injections. And we're going to talk about how to do that in a second, what needle size and all of that. So now we got frequency cleared out of the way. That is the biggest recommendation I have. If you guys can get to where you're doing more frequent injections rather than less, you're going to get more out of whatever you're using, especially if it's TRT. And then you're also going to mitigate the need for needing an AI. You're going to mitigate any negative health side effects, all of that. So B, now let's talk about how to inject. So the three main ways to inject is going to be IM, intramuscular, and that's using a typical, harpoon, 25 gauge, sometimes even thicker needle size. Sub-Q, so into the fat, or shallow IM. Shallow IM is still going to be in the muscle. It's just going to be at a lot less depth. So IM, this is what, this is kind of the gold standard. This is what's been around for literally decades. And this is what most people are doing. They're using a harpoon, which is a thicker gauge needle, and they're going deep into the muscle. The downside with doing this is really easy over time to build up a lot of scar tissue, whether you're doing, whether you're doing TRT or whether you're actually doing full-on steroids. Over time, you're going to build up some scar tissue using a thicker gauge needle. The other downside to this is the injections are a little bit more painful. So if you're wanting to do everyday injections, this is where, that gets to be where it's just mentally not fun. Knowing every day you got to go and inject yourself with a harpoon is not very fun. So the other way to do this is sub-Q. That's into the fat, typically the lower abdominal fat, but it can be really anywhere body fat wise. But lower abdominals is typically where most guys do it. The downside to sub-Q for a lot of guys, including myself, is even if you're doing micro injections, so very small amounts. Let's say with your TRT, you're only injecting, 0.08 mLs or somewhere around there every day. Even with that, with it being oil-based, a lot of times that oil gets stuck up in the fat, and it can cause quite a bit of post-injection pain, and kind of cause these like little oil lumps that sit into the fat. The great thing with sub-Q is it keeps your levels extremely stable. So from a stability standpoint, or hormone stability standpoint, sub-Q is actually great. It's just from a discomfort level for a lot of guys, this doesn't work out well. I personally use sub-Q, but only with my water-based HCG. So HCG is the only thing that I do sub-Q. When it comes to my TRT, what I like to do is shallow IM. So shallow IM is kind of the between sub-Q and true IM, and that's going to be using the needle I'll show you in just a second. This is going into the muscle, but it's not going near as deep, and it's using a smaller gauge needle than using a straight up harpoon. And you're going to mitigate scar tissue, but you're still going to be getting into the muscle, and it causes no discomfort at all, and it's super easy for intramuscular. So shallow IM, that's what I suggest. So what I personally use and what I suggest to my clients is a 29 gauge, 29 or 30 gauge insulin pen. It's a 1/2 inch. So this is a 1/2 inch 29 gauge insulin pen, and with microdosing it. So I can talk about my specific TRT dose in another video. If you guys want to see that, drop that down in the comments below, and I can fully detail out how I do my TRT plus HCG. But using an insulin pen, you can go straight into the muscle, but it's shallow. And using a small gauge like 29 gauge, you're not going to build up scar tissue. And this is a really painless way to do your injections. I mean, I'm talking, guys, it causes essentially no pain at all. It's not like injecting a 25 or even a 27 gauge harpoon. And you're not even really going deep into the muscle. Now, the considerations with shallow IM is because it is shallow, you need to make sure you're choosing a injection site that doesn't have a lot of body fat. So that's where if you're doing shallow IM, I don't suggest doing typical glutes, regular glutes. The sites I personally use for my shallow IM are ventral glutes. So ventral glutes are right here on the side. I do lat and then I do delt. Those are my sites. So I've got 6 sites right there because I've got both left and right. So I'll go left ventral, left lat, right lat, left delt, right delt, and then I go right back to ventral. So every 6 days I'm essentially hitting a side. And with that, guys, this is super painless. I'm getting straight to the muscle. And it just makes the injection super, super, super easy. So this is the way you can go ahead and essentially hack your TRT And one, make it super painless. Two, because you're doing it every day, you're going to be able to get more positive benefits out of less. And because one, you're using less, you're gonna have less negative side effects, less hits to your blood work like high hematocrit or high estrogen. But then two, because you don't have those, troughs in your hormone levels from, not doing everyday injections, now you also mitigate the need of, using something like an anti-estrogen and AI, anything like that. So this is the best way to go ahead and inject your TRT. You want to do daily injections, microdosing it, and then I personally prefer and highly recommend you do shallow IM with an insulin pen, something like a 29 gauge or 30 gauge. It needs to be half inch though. Don't get like the 5/16 or anything like that. Those are typically meant for sub-Q. You want to get half inch and you need to go into the muscle. So that means instead of grabbing the fat like you would be doing with the sub-Q, you need to go into the muscle and push up against the muscle to make sure it's really getting in there. And guys, I'm telling you, if you do this, you will see it on your blood work. I have literally pristine blood work. My hematocrit looks great. I never need to use an AI. And frankly, I'm able to use a lower TRT dose than most of the people I run into. And I have, great testosterone levels. My mood is fantastic. It's all very, very much dialed in. And that's because I'm doing daily injections with a shallow IM. So this is what I suggest. Get away from doing, twice a week injections, or if you're doing more infrequent than that, then guys, you are leaving one, so much positive benefit on the table from like a gain standpoint, but then two, I guarantee you that if you have high hematocrit or you're needing to use an AI, that's why is because you're doing infrequent injections. And guys, I'm telling you that this is one thing that when I was competing as a pro bodybuilder, I'm telling you, I was able to get more out of using less. So many guys are blasting through the roof right now, and they're doing so with, twice a week injections or, just not very frequent injections. And you can get more out of less and protect your health, protect your blood work, protect your health markers. You can do that with more frequent injections. So to recap, do more frequent injections, preferably daily injections. I prefer shallow IM. The way to inject it is to into the muscle, but using an insulin pen, typically a 29 or 30 gauge insulin pen, half inch. Guys, if you do this with your TRT, I'm telling you, you're even probably going to be able to lower your dose, look better, feel better, your mood's going to be better, and you're gonna have way better blood work too. Your hematocrit is going to be controlled. You're not going to need to be doing, donating blood or anything like that, and your estrogen is going to be really, really, really dialed in check. So give this a shot if you're not doing daily injections and you're not using an insulin pen. This will make things so much more painless, and it'll protect your health along the way. And you'll be able to get more use out of less, and you'll be able to actually lower your dose. So if you guys want me to talk about what my TRT dose is, how I do all of that, definitely drop that down in the comments below, and I can do that in one of the next coming videos. But I hope you guys got something out of this. If you did, please go ahead and smash that like button, hit subscribe if you haven't already. Leave any comments or questions down below, guys. All glory to God. God bless y'all. Have a great rest of your day.